Welcome to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. This is our shorter version, our 10-minute Tuesday episode, so we're going to get into it very quickly on rewards and celebration systems that reinforce behaviors that you actually want from your children and from yourself, because you know that parenting isn't something that you do to the kids. It's something you need to also lead yourself with. And it's a whole family unit in a concept. So we're going to talk celebration system on how to what it is, why it's important, how to reinforce it. And we're going to do it in about 10 minutes. So I have to give you the abbreviated introduction, which is if you get value out of this podcast, you got to rate or review it if you want us to keep coming back.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
Over the last couple of years, I've become increasingly frustrated with how things get celebrated, accomplishments get celebrated. I get increasingly frustrated with rewards and holidays. And Mel, you can share how fired up I got about holiday stuff this year.
Very fired up. You did not want to eat a single morsel.
I did not eat.
Okay. He did not eat a single morsel of unhealthy food just because that's what people normally do.
Not just normally do, but it reinforces behavior that doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, you made it through the year. Let's eat a bunch of bad food, wake up with a bad food hangover, and enjoy diarrhea for the next couple of days. Well, great job.
I guess I meant what people expect to have happen at certain holidays or times of the year.
That's well said. Today is my birthday that we're recording this episode. I am very lightheaded from doing this morning's birthday celebration challenge. And so that's part of the reason why it's going to be a short episode today. But I'll get text messages like, what are you going to eat on your birthday? Treat yourself. You know, I did treat myself. I treated myself up and down that Manitou incline twice with a weight vest on because I want to celebrate what I can accomplish and do. I'm getting off topic. I get fired up, Mel.
Well, see, I didn't even have to tell them why. You're just showing them how fired up you get.
Get all feisty. Because their perception of a reward is let's sit down and give you something that we wouldn't give you because it's not good for you. Does that make any sense, Mel?
No, it doesn't. I want it to make sense because it tastes good, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because it tastes good, whatever. But it's also the tradition.
Mm-hmm.
It's traditional to eat like a dumpster on the holidays. You got to have the traditional cookies. You got to have the traditional birthday cake on Thanksgiving. Got to eat pies. That's why is that a reward?
Mm-hmm.
Like you've done probably very mediocre throughout the year, and now you get to reward yourself with a bunch of crap to make sure that you aren't successful before the year's end.
Right. Well, do you want me to share when we did a challenge? I think it was 2 years ago during all the holidays.
Please do. I'm getting all lightheaded and fired up.
So Joe and I jumped on the 75 Hard Challenge, which is a mental toughness challenge, but a lot of it does involve what you're eating. So we decided to start it before Halloween purposefully, and it's 75 days, and it went through Halloween, through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, and I think even through my birthday. And when I first thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for the holidays? How am I going to manage giving the kids cookies? Because I still thought that that's what they would want or need based on tradition. And once we dove in and decided and committed to that challenge, that holiday season, honestly, something really awesome happened. We ended up finding amazing recipes that were still delicious, but did not throw us off track with our health habits. Remember that I made these cool little like cashew date cream things for Thanksgiving as like a dessert?
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome, and the kids enjoyed it. So this cool thing happened as soon as you just make a decision to shift your mindset about reward systems. You actually can find interesting ways of rewarding that are just as amazing, if not better, because obviously now you're rewarding things that you want repeated, that you wouldn't have even thought about before. And oftentimes when I have a dessert anyway, I think to myself, is that really worth it?
I want to say one more thing that just got me all red hot under the collar. And then we will get to the exact way that you can, for your family, choose what you want to do with it. And some of it is in jest, my sarcasm. So it's not coming from a judgmental place. It's coming on a reflective place of our own life. So I want to make sure that's an important point. But I do have some buddies who, believe it or not, some people hang out with me. I do have buddies. Couple, barely plural. However, when their child accomplishes something, they post a picture of them out at a restaurant with a huge plate of food and dessert in front of them. And it does make my stomach turn. Like, that's how I used to celebrate. So it's not judgment to like, hey, I had a good week. Let's go out and get some ice cream and some pizza and make sure that I'm not successful. So like, it doesn't even make sense. So before I regress, I want to get this statement in your mind, because what is memorable is portable. And here it is. What you reward gets repeated. You have to internalize that. Mel said it in what she was just talking about a second ago. What you reward gets repeated. And also, how you reward gets repeated. As in, when they grow up, if you celebrate everything by just a plate full of crap, that's what's going to get repeated when they're older. I'll tell you a story. I used to work with my dad. He would do HVAC on the weekends for side jobs, plumbing, odds and ends job, installing air conditioners and stuff like that. And the reward for going to work was that you got to be taken out to lunch and order whatever you want. And that's how most things are rewarded. And it's reflective of our own lives. And I still remember that, like, hey, like it wasn't a monetary reward or anything like that. It was, you get to eat all this junk that you normally don't get to eat. And that is now viewed as what you get when you accomplish something. And so, again, I've layered this with a little bit of sarcasm, but do have that perspective. That's what's happening. What's happening is you are choosing what you want repeated from your children with how you reward things.
So an example that we use for specifically with our son Logan, he loves to 3D print. And before I say this, one of the things that we shifted focus on was, instead of just being food, because that is kind of the reward that I think is most common, we shifted to experiences. So we try to reward with experiences. So Logan loves going 3D printing at this library that's maybe a 10-minute walk from his middle school. So what we started doing is, as a reward to him, after school a couple times a week, or whichever days it works out, he can walk down after school and get his 3D print started, and I pick him up like an hour later. So he looks forward to that. That is a reward for him. It might not be a reward for, my other kids, but for him, that's a very clear reward. And he gets to be a little more independent and walk down there. And then it's a behavior we want repeated. We want him to become independent. We want him to be doing things with his hands and his brain that make him stronger. So it's not food related, it's experience related and skills related.
That's a good way of spinning it and thinking about experience related. Our good friends, Vince and Vanessa, they have a daughter that loves the library. I can see a reward being, hey, you had an amazing week at school. Your teacher sent home this note that said that you were had outstanding character in class. Why don't you and I go and spend an extra hour at the library, just the two of us this weekend? And that would be a massive reward to her. And what are you going to do? Say, oh, you did so good I'm going to give you a bowl of ice cream instead. Like, really, what is more value? It is a cop-out. Man, I'm getting fired. It is a cop-out to just shovel crap at them and say, oh, here you go. Here's a cookie. You did good. Is that really what the kids want? Or do they want more intentional time with you? What's easier for you? It's easier to dish out the cookie. Let's have a tough truth here. Let's have some honesty around this, that we do rewards that are simple for us to give, but we're screwing things up in the long run. Again, reflective on our own behavior, not judgmental towards anyone else.
There's this common theme coming up with a lot of these podcasts we're doing, where it's going to require you as an adult to be able to reflect on either how you were raised, or what you're used to doing, or what your first expectation is, and ask yourself, is this really what is most important? Is this really what will get the behavior that I want repeated? And it might take a bit of that. Well, I have great memories of this particular kind of cookie at Christmas time, so I have to repeat it because I'm trying to relive that. But when you look at it the way you're asking, what is that reinforcing? It's really not reinforcing necessarily anything positive, or, well, I don't want to say positive, but healthy.
And I'll even go a little bit deeper, because I think we exist too much on the surface level, and based on our last episode with relationship capital, we'll say things like, this was a special cookie that my grandmother made just for me, so I need to eat it. Now, it's not the actual cookie. It's that your grandmother spent time making something that she viewed of value. Now, you might not necessarily agree, because I don't, but you might not necessarily agree, and you don't thank for the cookie. You thank for the time that she spent thinking about you, because that is the value.
That's really important. And actually, I thought about that with the Vanessa example, or the library example, because not only are you rewarding that kid with an experience they enjoy at the library, but it's with you.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes when you live together, you just assume, well, we're together all the time. But sometimes taking specific time, like you, Joe, go outside with Henry for 15 minutes to block all his soccer, all his attempts at making goals.
There's
And
no mercy.
no mercy. But that 15 minutes that he goes outside, when they go outside together, is extremely rewarding and a reward versus just sending the kid out to play. So I think when you're more intentional with the experiences you have parent to child, again, reinforcing that other podcast we had about relationships within the family, how, maybe there's a relationship that needs a little bit more help. So have there be a reward or some kind of experience together that will build that bond.
You want to reinforce the value of quality time? Use quality time as an additional reward. Don't just use it as only a reward, but being in the same room together doesn't count as quality time. We live increasingly distracted life. So when you say something like, and now we're going to get into the examples, because I know it's a shorter episode. You had an amazing week at work. I want to spend an hour with you doing anything you want to do. What do you want? You want to play a board game? I know you like this game, Sturdy Birdie. And I almost always fall down doing it, but you know what? Let's do it together. Because I'm seeing you improve the quality of your life. And this is very powerful. So let's spend some extra time together. Let's talk about it. Let's go out on a drive in the truck. That's what the kids like. I'll let you ride in the back of the truck up and down the road. Let's go shoot airsoft outside. Let's go do some archery. Let's go to the library. Let's 3D print. Let's set up a play date and go and get some extra time with a friend, because the value you've brought to your brothers has been so impressive this week that I bet you can bring value to other people. And so let's increase the relationships you have. Let's go out and have some extra time with some friends, or let's drop you off at a family member's house that you love learning from. Like, all these are examples of rewards. Mel, tactically speaking, what are some other examples of rewards?
I think a lot of times it's good to do a reward as a family too. So we'll go for a hike, just a quick, easy hike. And sometimes if food is important, I think it's awesome as a reward to make something together that's healthy. Like Logan's really got on that. Mm-hmm. And it's been really exciting. So that's another way to do it. But we do movie nights sometimes as a family. So we all get together in one room and watch a movie. That can be really rewarding. And it does go with our value of wanting to be together.
Movie night's a great example. Yeah. Sometimes we do some artwork together where we draw part of a picture and the next person draws part, and then you come around and see what the total picture is. It's just full quality time. Now, there's a key component to this, and that is how you communicate about the reward. And I did an example of it earlier with being able to go over to a friend's house, but it's you get to enjoy this because you've improved this part of your life. It's not just, this will be nice to do. Like, the communication piece is the key piece. Like, a reward could be sit on the porch. That doesn't sound thrilling, but if you say, hey, I saw how patient you were with your brother when he was trying to agitate you, and I want to reward that by sitting down and would you sit down with me and let me ask you some questions about life? Because I want to learn some things about your patience, because I'm not great at it, but somehow you displayed it. Let's spend some time together and talk about that. So you're highlighting the behavior that you want repeated, and the reward is whatever you're doing together afterwards.
And it's like earning it, right? They're trying to earn it. So they see that their piece in it, or yours if it's your own reward, they see that they did actionable things to earn that reward. I think that's really important. And one thing that came to mind earlier, if you reward with food, oftentimes you'll end up either going to bed with like a food coma, you wake up not feeling great, and sometimes it's just this feels like it wasn't even worth it. But every time that we've used a reward, such as the 3D printing or going for a family hike, even if at the moment sometimes it's like, oh, it's cold out, I don't really want to go, we always feel grateful we did it. Like, I never look back at those experiences and extra time spent as something that I wish I hadn't done. But with the food stuff, oftentimes you do feel like I wish I hadn't. So I think that if you shift your mindset and see the gain you get from changing your reward system, you do grow as a family and you do feel better about those decisions.
If you want to supercharge the path you're on with your family, reward based on your core values. Now, we're throwing out tons of tactics, but you'll know what your own core values are if you listen to the very first episode, because it is the critical one. Develop your family's core values. Celebrate using those if you want your kids to buy in to those being important. Celebrate using junk food if you want your kids to buy in to that being important.
Yeah, like being genuine. So that's Logan 3D printing.
Mm-hmm.
That goes along with that value, for example.
Adventure, going out on a hike or walk together.
Or personal development. Maybe there's a book. We've often bought the kids books before. They love the Warrior Kids series.
Mm-hmm.
And because we want to have that behavior repeated, we bought the whole series. So they can read it as many times as they'd like. And then whenever it grows up, he can. So again, we invest our time and money into things that will grow them as individuals.
Logan loves audiobooks, and so he would listen to them peacefully, and then he would share some things. One day he shared a lot of things that he learned in that. I said, it's amazing that you read, learned, and shared. What audiobook do you want to buy next? Because it's reinforcing the behavior of personal growth and development that is important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rewarding in a path that he likes. I'm not redirecting him and say, hey, how would you love a stomach ache today? Let's go get some cookie cake. Good job reading.
It's funny that we laugh about it because it sounds so ridiculous when you say it. But it's like, I guess you have to take a look at what excuses are you saying to yourself that are making you still think it's okay to just have that food reward instead.
Yeah, people will hold on to the simplicity. I know we did. People will hold on to it's what they actually want to treat themselves, and so they'll use as reward for the family, which I did. These things are understandable, but we got to at least have the conversations that are a little bit tougher on the show. I'm not looking to pacify everyone and say, it's okay if you do this. I understand why it's happening, but let's just nudge it in a little bit better direction, because we didn't think that was so negative until we started really thinking about it. And it's natural just to not think about it and go through the motions.
And please don't think that we somehow have it perfected. A lot of what we're doing is trying to shift mindsets and just make more intentional decisions towards our values. And certainly sometimes you really don't eat much sugar at all, but I still have some sugar in my coffee, for example, or I'll go out and get something. But I think it's really about working towards that constant gentle pressure. Could I have made a different decision? How is this decision impacting the kids? We used to go out to Shields and get that coffee. Remember, we'd always get coffee, and we were reinforcing with the kids how every time we go out, we have to get coffee.
And we would also reinforce whenever we go out, it's important to spend money on this.
Yeah. I know that's going to be part of our financial discussion, right, on a different podcast. But this reminded me of that because we were doing that action consistently, teaching them, hey, when you grow up, you're going to want to go out, and then you're probably going to want to get something because that's what you saw growing up.
It is as harsh and as simple as this is, hey, me giving you this cookie, parent to child, me giving you this cookie is me putting a Band-Aid on that I don't want to be creative in how to reward you, so enjoy this cookie.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're just so out of energy that you just kind of throw at the easiest thing instead of being a little more clever. But you can ask your kids what they would find rewarding. You might come up with a really interesting list.
And also, to your last point, you're out of energy. That happens all the time. You may kick the can down the road by saying what you did was really important today. I'm going to choose something by the family meeting time next week or this week, and we'll have a reward for you. Maybe just just have some ice cream. That's not a reward when you say it like that anyways. Take a breath and a breather and understand that they don't get immediate gratification. You're teaching them more than just what the reward is by saying, hey, you did something amazing. I want to acknowledge it now, and we'll do something extra for you. Let's talk about it at the family meeting. That is, of course, if you've watched the episode on family meetings and have established those, because it gives you a place to push these things to discuss it. And it's even more valuable as a reward to praise them in public at the family meeting for the behavior you want. Reinforce. It's less value to reward it in private. Reward in public, celebrate. You criticize in private and you give them tough truths in private because you don't want to embarrass them in front of everyone else, but that's a whole nother discussion. Mm-hmm. I will end with this because I think we're going to be over our 10 minutes. I know
I guess
the kids are eating, so I'm manually working the YouTube cameras, so it's only changed twice. But
Can I give one excuse buster though? Because I think this is important to this discussion.
Yeah.
So I think the big piece of this is it's almost easier to decide to reward your children in this way that we're suggesting. But you also need to think about shifting how you reward yourself. So as parents, we do have time on our own when the kids are in school, and it's really easy to sneak some bad food or whatever. So I think if you're going to start this kind of process with the kids, you do have to take a really harsh look at how you reward yourself, because the kids do notice how you do that. And I think that's really important. So it's always the parent kind of turning the light onto themselves and saying, okay, well, how can I change it for me too, so I can buy in, not just expect the kids to buy in?
You're telling me, Mel, that do as I say, not as I do is not a good parenting strategy?
I would not.
I'm sitting here with my bowl of ice cream. You guys shouldn't eat that. You're telling me that's not a good way to do it?
I don't believe it is.
And don't hide it at night either, because you know. Like, you want to try to hide things from your kids and eat the cookies in the closet. You can't hide it from yourself. And when you're telling them not to eat it, it comes off as very unauthentic. Inauthentic? Unauthentic. Both of them.
Okay, both of them.
Yeah.
A piece of going down this strong family path is taking a look at your own decisions.
It's family, not you doing to your kids. This is the whole major theme. Like, it's not parenting podcast, it's family podcast. You got to lead, manage, and hold accountable everyone in your house, including you, which is the hardest one to hold accountable.
And it's funny in our family because Joe will usually have big ideas, and I'm not gonna eat any sugar for 100 days, and the rest of us are like, really? Like, how can you do that? But then he does it, and we watch him, and not that we necessarily jump on board with that exact challenge, but it's amazing because he makes progress as an individual. It does rub off on the rest of us.
The key is it's a mindset. I'm not restricting or harming myself by like, hey, I'm going to really focus on improving myself by doing this. It is a reward for me not to eat that crap. And that's the mindset we're talking about here.
Not for me, thanks, is what you always say when...
That's right. Someone rolls out, no, none for me, thanks. I make a big deal. I say, no. I'll give you one more example because people will think I'm ridiculous. Then we'll bring it back home with some more practical things. For my birthday last year, I didn't want any cake. I didn't want any of that nonsense. Instead, I trained for 6 months to do 4,140 pull-ups in under 24 hours. So I got up at 2:30 a.m., turned on How I Bet Your Mother was streaming on Amazon because you can't jack yourself up to loud music and then like not expect to burn out, and did 4 or 5 pull-ups every 30 seconds for 13 hours until I got to the final total after training for. And that's how I celebrated my birthday, by doing something that's so memorable and such an experience that a lot of my friends have kind of adopted things like that as little birthday challenges. But for me, it was a celebration of effort and accomplishment. That memory is going to stay with me for the rest of my life. I will never remember what cake I had at any of my birthdays. It's just lukewarm, middle, background noise to my life. Today was my birthday. I got up with my brother. We went over to the Manitou Incline, put on a weight vest, and went up and down it for 3 hours. Honestly, it feels like a little bit of a letdown after last year's pull-ups. But that's how we choose to celebrate. And this isn't about me. I wanted to pass the story on, because how did Henry celebrate Thanksgiving? 1,010 pull-ups. He's 10. I was 40. He said he would do 25% of the pull-ups because he was 25% of my age. He started doing them every morning because he wanted to create that memory. And he did it again for his 11th birthday. He celebrated his 11th birthday. Yes, we had some cupcakes. That was his thing, but he's not going to remember the cupcakes. He's going to remember that his dad and him woke up and did 1,011 pull-ups together. Right. And so that is a memory, and the experiences that we're talking about are going to be equal memories. Like if Vince takes his daughter special to the library, which I know he already does because he's a great dad, but if he gives her an extra special time, she's going to remember that more than if he came home with a cookie for her.
Yes, you're so right. We're building these memories and what we want to be memorable. And just to make a little clarification, this is not a podcast about losing weight. This is about shifting your mindset about what kind of behaviors we want rewarded. So if you have an idea of what success looks like for your child, are the rewards that you're providing helping them go in that direction?
Yes, you could have different core values. And I was thinking about this on the hike because I love the introspection you get when you're doing something hard and challenging. So that's why I like to have those memories. And let's say you are a big choir family, like we're a big fitness family, you could be a big chorus family. You take them out to a concert, like that is an amazing reward that fits your core value and vision. So they're not driving you one way or the other. I'm just suggesting you think about rewards based on your family's core values and what's important to you. And I do think there are some things that are universal, personal growth and development. You do have to take care of yourself. You're doing your kids a disservice if you don't. We do need to introduce them to things like Henry did a podcast. He's playing the violin and like other things outside of our normal comfort zone so they get a better perspective of the world. But there are some overarching things, which is you gotta have personal development. Whichever way you want to take that, you got to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be close to a 30-minute one.
I know. Well, that's okay.
I got fired up at the beginning. My blood sugar got out of whack.
But I think one of our challenges is, again, every family is different. So just because it's a value that we have doesn't mean necessarily you have to take it on. But we just try to share the common thread of where we're trying to go, changing the idea of how we reward.
I'll give you the exact moment in my life where this perspective changed, and I fought against it because I didn't want to change. I wanted the pizza, and I wanted the ice cream, and I wanted the cookies, and I wanted laziness as my reward for doing something productive. It happened in the gym, and there was a bunch of us working out on a Saturday a few years ago, and there was a hard challenge. I don't even remember exactly what the challenge was. It was like do a sled and do my 15 calories on the bike, do a hand-over-hand sled row, do 10 pull-ups, do 5 rounds as fast as you could. What do you think the reward was?
Pizza?
No, not this time. My brother and I thought about it, and the usual reward was like, hey, if you do great, you get to sit out the next round and everyone goes again.
Oh, yes, I remember you.
You remember this story?
Yes, I do now.
And then we thought about it and said, the reward is watching other people get stronger than you while you sit on the sidelines? Like, that doesn't make sense. So we switched the reward. Not everyone was down with it, but my brother and I got very competitive with it, is that the person that won got to do the extra lap and everyone else had to watch. The person that won got the reward of getting stronger. And it clicked for me that day. That is the bigger picture reward in the long run. It's not the satisfaction of like, oh, you guys got to go again. I've been there. I do enjoy busting chops on that. However, it was even better chop busting, getting stronger while they had to sit there.
I mean, way to reinforce what behavior you want repeated, right?
Yeah, it was, and I had a lot of sarcasm in this episode, but behind it's a lot of truth. And that is the moment where I was like, you know what? The one who does get to do the extra work does get the bigger reward in the long run. I like joking, like, hey, you sit there and watch me get stronger, or you can sit there and watch me get smarter. You can sit there and watch me invest more time in my whatever it is. But the reward is the actual effort. Like when we go hiking, we get to the top, touch it, head back down. The reward isn't the top. The reward is that we get to go on that journey and create a memory. Mel, finish it up.
I hope you're inspired to start to change your mindset about reward systems. I think it will be rewarding, pun intended, if you do so. So just start that shift. We're not perfect with it now either, but just starting to understand where we're coming from might inspire you to then get creative with your kids on rewarding them.
Mel has a good altruistic view of the world. I don't necessarily want to be inspirational. I just want to be informative, and hopefully I can shift your mindset and perspective a little bit around the rewards. And it is cool that we both get to do this together so we can share some different perspectives on it, that I go a little bit harder in some areas.
I try to soften it a little bit.
Visit us at strongfamilyproject.com. download the path. It is free. So you can start having these real conversations, and you don't have to come with the same agreement or final destination as us. Put your own spin on it. But the criteria of walking this path and creating the structure will be the same. Talk to you on the next episode.